News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Logan City School District voted to join over 400 other districts across the country to become part of the litigation effort against Jewel Labs. Tuesday, during their board meeting, Logan School District Business Administrator Jeff Barbin said the district had been approached by an attorney with Curtin McConkey, but he and Superintendent Frank Schofield were skeptical. Barbin explained he had seen similar lawsuits that end up with the attorneys making a lot, but individuals, the plaintiffs, ending up with very little. Barbin said he kept in touch with the attorney and was able to get more information. He thought it would be beneficial for the school district to join with about 41 other districts in Utah. Barbin explained that it should send the message that school officials are serious about the health effects of vaping on students. The lawsuit claims Jewel downplayed health risks of vaping and used questionable marketing practices to target minors and young adults. The lawsuit leans on a lawsuit filed against Jewel by North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein, which settled for $40 million in June. Logan City School District Education Board Vice President Frank Stewart motioned to join the lawsuit with the contingency that any proceeds that result from the lawsuit be used in anti-smoking education and prevention. Board member Ann Geary suggested using some of the funds to invest in vaping detectors to place in school restrooms and locker rooms. The detectors register chemical vaping aerosol, then send an email or text alert to school officials, according to Wired. Jewel Labs has tried to have the lawsuit dismissed, but have not been successful. If no settlement is reached, a trial would begin in March 2022. KBNU News Time is 4:07. KBNU weather for tonight. Chance of rain showers this evening. The overnight low around 30 degrees. And then mostly cloudy and cool around 40 degrees on Saturday. Sunny and around 40 on Sunday. Right now we have 45 degrees at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. Always the best prices on the best parts. Get a 5-quart jug of Napa full synthetic oil for $19.99. Heavy-duty Napa 15-weight 40 engine oil, $12.49 a gallon. And great deals on Evercraft 100-piece screwdriver set for just $19.99. That's Napa Know-How, locally owned. 5 locations of Napa Auto Parts from Preston to Providence.
Have you pulled your winter quilts and blankets out of storage? Do they smell stale and look flat? And is your hunting gear, sleeping bags, and coats dingy as well? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen everything up with their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, the biggest around, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning, with free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. They're on the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham City at 1st East and 7th South.
KBNU News Time is 4:08. Riverton police say they have exhausted every viable lead in their search for 2 missing teens and are hoping the public can lend assistance. Ellie Droge and Ocean Pulley, both 13 years of age, were last seen leaving Oker Hills Middle School at around 9 o'clock Monday morning and have not been seen since. A household security camera later caught the 2 walking through the neighborhood. According to police, the teens wanted to continue in a relationship their parents were against. Riverton Police Commander Ryan Shosted says the department is working every lead and is asking anyone with information on the teens to call law enforcement. Utah State demolished New Mexico State 85-58 in the Myrtle Beach Invitational Championship earlier today. Utah State will play in the championship game of the Invitational on Sunday. They will play the winner of the Oklahoma and Indiana State game. Looks like tip-off is around 1 o'clock Mountain Time. KBNU News Time is 4:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
reporting the news that matters to you. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, your number one radio station for news and talk.
Ah, that's better. Trade in the stresses of building a new home for relaxation. Visionary Homes Priority is giving you a stress-free building experience. Named the best home builder in northern Utah, Visionary Homes team will guide you seamlessly through the home building process. Call today, 435-228-4702, or visit visionaryhomes.com to learn more about upcoming communities in Nibley, Logan, and Smithfield. Visionary Homes, built for living, built for you.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson. The Black Friday sales event is on now at Wilson Motor Company. We have bonus cash and 0% financing on select models to help clear out the remaining 2021 models. Check out our available inventory of over 60 new vehicles with 20 F-150s and 120 used vehicles. Drop in for a test drive at one of our 2 great locations. Hurry in, the Black Friday sales event ends soon.
Wilson Motor Company, we make car buying easy.
With so much financial uncertainty, are you wondering if your retirement savings will last? The market's ups and downs can keep you guessing, especially if you're approaching retirement or considering it. If you have more questions than answers about what's next, your Edward Jones financial advisor can help you prepare for your journey. After all, retirement isn't the end of the trek, it's a new beginning. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have 2 guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is with excitement, honest, sincere excitement, that I announced on today's movie show we're going to be talking about the first official Ghostbusters sequel since that mediocre sequel in the early 90s, I think it was, maybe late 90s. This, of course, is a classic American movie. It's surprisingly, when you watch the original Ghostbusters from 84, I want to say. I think. I should have looked that up. It's surprisingly not dated. It's still funny, even if you've seen it a million times. The sequel, I actually enjoyed the sequel, but it wasn't as good, nearly. And then, of course, there was a bit of a reboot/remake a few years ago with women in the roles, and Kristen Wiig's just hilarious to me. So I really like that one for different reasons, but that one basically followed a similar plot and was just a remake of sorts. This is an official sequel following the storyline, and with, as I understand it, some surprise appearances by the original cast of Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and others. But it tells an entirely new story. I believe it's the grandkids in this one. And I've been curious to see if they could do this, if they could make... Well, Andy saw the movie. You'll have to wait to hour 2 to hear his review. But he said he went into this. This is what I've been authorized to tell you. He went into this with trepidation, thinking this was just... Certain movies cannot be added upon. They're just that classic. He said he went in feeling that way, that he was prepared to enjoy it, but, be a bit disappointed. He said that was not the case. Loved every minute of it, and he'll give us a full review coming up today at 5 o'clock in hour 2 of today's show. So Kicking things off here with just a few updates from around the state. As you heard yesterday, the governor made this announcement during, and by the way, 6 other states have done this. State leaders in now 7 states, including Utah, have said they've become a bit frustrated with what has been some messy messaging and guidance from the FDA and the CDC when it comes to booster shots. And what they're talking about basically is the back and forth over the last few months. It's recommended that if you're in a high-risk group or over the age of 65 that you get a booster shot. But then you're still hearing stuff about, well, you might not need one, who does need one and who doesn't. Basically, things have coalesced around the idea that a booster shot is important, a great idea. And there's now data coming out of state-level data collection coming out of many states in the United States to show that booster shots are going even further to slow the spread of COVID-19. But that's led a few states to say, do you know what? Okay, it's very clear that the FDA and the CDC plan to fully give this the thumbs up, but why wait an additional couple of weeks? So yesterday, Governor Cox announced that Utah would move ahead. Booster shots for those 18 and older in high-risk groups and anyone aged 65 and older have been available for several weeks now here in Utah. And as you've probably heard as well, it doesn't matter. Well, it does, but if you got the most frequent vaccines used here in Utah were Moderna and Pfizer, and it doesn't matter which booster you get when it comes to Moderna and Pfizer. If you got Moderna, you can get a Pfizer booster. If you got Pfizer, you can get a Moderna booster. So whatever they have will work for you as a booster. It's a bit different with Johnson & Johnson. The Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine was proven to be still pretty effective, but a bit less effective than the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. And so what they're recommending with Johnson & Johnson is that you don't look at it as a booster, look at it as your second dose. Because what they're finding is that second dose of Johnson & Johnson was probably a good idea from the start. So, it's funny, Bill, I was talking with a friend who has sheep. And if you've ever had sheep or know anything about sheep, there's a recommended vaccination process for them for certain bacterial diseases they'll get, overeating disorder and things like that. And he said, I don't understand why it's so hard for everyone to figure this out. This is the same thing you do with all your farm animals. You give them one shot, you wait 30 days, give them a second shot, and then 6 months after that second shot, 6 months to a year after that second shot, you get a booster, and then they're good. And then when they're older, you might maybe want to consider,
and that, of course,
booster.
isn't for COVID-19.
No, that's for everything else. But he said it's the same thing. I don't know why I don't understand why everyone's so confused and freaking out about this. It's the same thing we do with sheep, which is actually great.
Well,
cattle, horses,
it's a new vaccine, I guess. So there's
sure.
There's
a lot of
people don't know.
A lot of I think reasonable questions that people have had, and the FDA and CDC, of course, are being very careful. One of the reasons, though, and this is where I was going with this story, Governor Cox yesterday announced that Utah would move ahead, despite the fact that the official word from the CDC hasn't come yet. The CDC is basically telling states, look, the booster's a good idea, and it should be available to everyone 18 and older. And so Utah's moving ahead with that. 6 other states have as well, Oklahoma, I don't remember them all, but 6 other states already had said we're giving boosters to everyone 18 and older. So the data's in now on the vaccines themselves. They're safe, they're effective. The side effects are extremely rare and usually mild. We know all that at this point. And what is really in question here is, obviously supply is not as limited as it was at the start when we were all, signing up for appointments and waiting until our appointment came. That was due to, they were still ramping up manufacturing of these vaccines. So many states had limited supply. Utah would get 150 doses at a time every 3 days, something like that. Now that's not an issue, but there was still some concern as far as giving the go-ahead on 18 and older, all 18 and older booster shot availability, anyone 18 and older booster shot availability. What they didn't want to do was they wanted to make sure that was important enough to do to cut into the supply because there are still, the United States is still keeping an eye on what's going on in other countries as well. And so the United States has been using some of our stockpile of vaccines to help Mexico, to help some countries in Africa. So on the African continent, production and manufacturing hasn't been an issue. Distribution has. And so they're being careful. So if they decided that it wasn't necessary at this point to go ahead with 18 and older getting a booster shot, then those doses could be used elsewhere. So they're just being very careful about this. But at this point, Governor Cox said yesterday, the Utah Department of Health, working with the CDC and communicating with the FDA, said, yes, okay, even though the official thumbs up hasn't been given and probably won't until next week, Utah is moving ahead. So as of today, anywhere a vaccine is available in Utah, whether that be a pharmacy, the health department, where they're still doing walk-in clinics on an ongoing basis daily. They are also doing some Saturday clinics here and there. Last Saturday, there was a clinic for children age 5 to 11. There's a lot going on. So, again, starting today, anyone 18 and older, regardless of your health, regardless of, you don't have to have, these compromising health issues as before. Anyone 18 and older can get a booster shot. And again, the scientific guidance on this is that when it comes to the booster, it's not important which one. So if you go in to get a booster shot, you had Pfizer 2 doses 6 months ago at least, and all they have is Moderna, take it. Same thing if you had Moderna 6 months ago, second shot, and that's really the only requirement, is it needs to be 6 months past your second shot in order for you to qualify for a booster. But if you go in, you had Moderna and they only have Pfizer, take it. Had Pfizer, they only have Moderna, take it. The only time it gets different is if it's Johnson & Johnson, which is still not widely available here in Utah, according to the health department. So it is available, but it's not as frequently found at various clinics and health departments. So again, if you did have Johnson & Johnson as your first and only dose, you definitely want to get the booster. They're now saying with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that it probably should have just been 2 doses from the start. When they look at the data and its effectiveness, getting a second dose of Johnson & Johnson basically brings it up to where the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are on protecting you. So that's official as of today. And this is happening, actually. So the governor made the announcement yesterday, but it wasn't clear exactly when the doors would open for booster shots for anyone 18 and older who was at least 6 months beyond their second dose of the original vaccination schedule. That officially started today at health departments, pharmacies, and more all around the state. So if you want more information, coronavirus.utah.gov. There's actually a map there you can see, has been for quite some time. Some other great information as well. And that is where we're at on boosters. So go get them. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
With D.L. Evans Bank Digital Services, everything you need to manage your money is right there in the palm of your hand. The click of your mouse, the tap of your tablet. Transferring funds, depositing checks, even opening new accounts or taking out a loan are just a click away. We're right there with you, where you are, so you can spend a little less time banking and a little more time living. This is banking for here and now. This is Community Banking, D.L. Evans Bank.
At Winco, we're working to save you money. Big savings on top quality meat, produce, seafood, and deli. Bakery fresh breads, cakes, and cookies made daily in store. Low prices on top quality national brands and thousands of our own private label. In every aisle, every department, every day.
Now open in Logan at 1341 North Main Street.
When the bills from your accident pile up, it's time for you to consider professional legal counsel. Get the Berenson and Caldwell.
My dad was in a car accident. He was rear-ended by a work truck. He sustained some pretty bad injuries. What we didn't know at the time was that he also had sustained a traumatic brain injury, and it really affected his personality. You know, if he had just had an MRI, if he'd had someone pushing him to get checked out, make him feel confident that he wasn't going to end up going bankrupt with medical debt.
Visit BerensonLaw.com to instantly connect and receive a free case review of your injury. BerensonLaw.com.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Record set in Utah today. Well, okay, the record was set over the last several weeks, but the record was announced today as the Workforce Services Utah Department of Workforce Services, Jobs UT on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, if you want to find them and see this report yourself. I've linked to it on our own Facebook page, but they made a updated unemployment rate announcement today. And Utah set a record for the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded in the state. 2.2% unemployment. Now, of course, this is statewide, and this is an average, meaning some areas are being hit harder than others. So it's not consistent across the state at 2.2%. But statewide average unemployment rate is 2.2%. The record was 2.3%. Yes. So, according to the Utah Department of Workforce Services in this announcement today, there are approximately 37,000. Now, this still sounds like a huge number. It is a huge number, but it's, again, only 2.2% of the workforce. 37,400 Utahns are currently unemployed in the state and looking for work. On the flip side of that, the Department of Workforce Services says employment level is about 1.6 million. So 1.6 million people working, 37,400 looking for work but unemployed. And that's still a significant number. That's 37,000 people. That's a lot of families. That's a lot of... So even 2.2% is still, something you'd like to work on, but a new record for the state. Our friend Mark Nold, chief economist for the state of Utah, has been a guest on our show several times over. In the statement today said the labor market... unfortunately, in Utah also continues to shrink. So part of this is bittersweet, I guess. 2.2% unemployment is partially happening. There are two things happening, Nold said. One, industries that shrank during the pandemic have grown back and have even grown more. So there's a lot of adding jobs going on. But he said, unfortunately, what they're seeing in the labor data is that this low unemployment rate is also being contributed to by a large number of people leaving the workforce. And as we talked about earlier on in the week, Nold and his associates there at the state Office of Economic Development said that right now there is one worker looking for work for every 3 job openings. Well, it was actually 2.8. But roughly 3 open jobs for every 1 person working for work. That's great for employees, and it's leading to some probably long overdue change as far as companies raising wages and offering bonuses, so much so that the state is expected to see a $614 million surplus by the end of this year in revenue, a good chunk of that coming from raised income. So every time someone's income goes up, they're obviously, through income taxes, pouring a bit more into the state coffers. And so that's where a good chunk of that $614 million surplus Utah's expected to end the year with is coming from, because employers are trying, with 3 open jobs for every 1 person looking for work throughout the state of Utah, employers are having to offer more and entice people more. I saw a report, one of the evening news channels, they spoke with, it was a warehouse, I think, in Salt Lake, some kind of warehouse storage, appliances. That's what it was. It was an appliance warehouse, a wholesale warehouse. And they talked to them about how hard it was for them to fill. They had these job openings that were high-paying jobs. They were starting people at $22 an hour. And they said the problem is even offering $22 an hour starting to drive a forklift in this warehouse, 3 people in a row that they had interviewed and planned to hire went elsewhere. One of them literally across the street, because for $24 an hour starting, they didn't have to wear a hard hat and there weren't any safety scares on the job. It wasn't a warehouse. It was something else. They didn't say what. So they told that story basically to emphasize what this is doing to the labor market in Utah, that with that many choices out there, employees are getting pretty selective. And so really good news, but at the same time, as Nold said, this can be a problem because the industries can only grow so much. He also talked a little bit about something that can happen, and Nold was careful to say, Mark Nold, of course, chief economist for the state of Utah, he was careful to say that he doesn't think we're there yet in Utah, but he said one thing that economists here in the state are keeping an eye on that's related to all of this is what he called overeducating the workforce. He said it's possible that you can reach a point where you've got so many people with college degrees that there are certain industries that just cannot function in your state anymore, industries that rely on more blue-collar job type situations, people that would traditionally not have a college degree or not get a college degree in order to get that job. He said also something that was impacting Utah and a lot of industries in Utah is that immigration has basically been cut in half over the last 4 years. And that means a lot of labor that traditionally is here, especially some seasonal labor, hasn't been. And so he said that's impacting very negatively some of the industries here in Utah. So he said the risk is not that you'll have people without work, and there's obviously nothing wrong with people finding more jobs that start, as this warehouse job in the news started at $22 an hour. He said that's not a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. What could become a bad thing is that you entirely lose certain industries within the state or within the region because there's just no workers there for it. And he said in today's global economy, what happens is, if you have an industry here in Utah and suddenly no one wants to work for less than $22 an hour, I'm just using that as an arbitrary number because it was in the news story, and almost everyone has a college degree, well, then certain blue-collar jobs are going to leave the state, and if they are leaving Utah, they're probably not going to nearby states. And like manufacturing, he said we saw the same thing happen. Manufacturing ended up mostly in other countries because of this. So Nold also touched a little bit on, because this was brought up during the news conference today on this unemployment number, he touched a bit on artificial intelligence and robotics, automation. And, I mean, this has been around for decades, that the robots were going to replace us. They were going to take over production and manufacturing jobs, and nobody would be employed. And he said we've actually seen the opposite. He said what we've seen is for every ounce of automation, there have been 2 ounces of needed human labor to go along with it. So the automation can speed up production and productivity, but it's not eliminating jobs. What they've seen is that it's actually automation is actually creating jobs. It's just putting products out faster and more cheaply, so the profit margins are larger. But in most cases, employment has actually increased in industries where automation has been large because, automation comes with a lot of need for maintenance and things like that. So Nold's overall conclusion as the chief economist for the state of Utah is this is really good news, but there are some things to keep an eye on. Again, Utah setting a record today in an announcement from the Department of Workforce Services that the unemployment rate in Utah, 2.2%. Unfortunately, the underemployment rate is higher than it's ever been as well, meaning that more people have left the workforce or have taken part-time jobs when they used to have full-time jobs than ever before as well. So some things to keep an eye on, some concerning tidbits here and there, but otherwise, pretty good news. 37,400 Utahns looking for work in the workforce, 1.6 million Utahns currently employed. Check it out. I've linked to the full report statement from Governor Cox today as well on this. First, Nold said the labor market in Utah continues to tighten, and Governor Cox touched on that for these October numbers, but said overall this is something that his administration celebrates because it means we are doing something right here in Utah, and we just need to do it right some more, which I thought was a perfect way to say it. So links to the report, if you'd like to see it yourself, with some great visualizations, by the way, that's on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more For the People on the other side of these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:34. The news is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Utah became the latest state Thursday to open COVID-19 vaccine booster shots to all adults, despite it not yet being authorized by the U.S. government. Governor Spencer Cox announced the change at his monthly news conference on KUED. Utah is one of dozens of states dealing with increased spread of the virus as weather turns colder. Utah and Massachusetts became the latest states Thursday to take the step, following several others, including California and Colorado. The FDA is expected to decide on Pfizer's request to open boosters to all adults before an advisory panel meets Friday, and as we've been talking about, there's been some movement with that. A Canadian mining company hoping to build an open-pit gold mine in Idaho west of Yellowstone National Park can resume exploratory drilling. The Forest Service today announced it had approved Exelon Idaho Gold's Kilgore Gold project in the Caribou-Targhee National Forest. The project had been halted following federal court rulings in 2019 and 2020 concerning potential harm to Yellowstone cutthroat trout in a stream. The new drilling plan pulls water from a different stream officials say does not contain the trout. The company says the area contains about 825,000 ounces of gold. And Utah State took care of business against New Mexico State at the Myrtle Beach Invitational Championship, the semifinal game earlier today, blowing out New Mexico State 85-58. They will face the winner of the Oklahoma and Indiana State game. That is looking more and more like it will be Oklahoma. Currently a 19-point lead over Indiana State with about 6 minutes left in the game. KVNU News Time is 4:37.
Okay, Piggy, this time that steel building is coming down.
What you got there, Wolfie?
It's a tornado in a tube. How can that be? Your building's still standing. I'm blown away.
A building from Northern Steel Buildings will keep out the big bad wolf, and they don't break the piggy bank. Visit northernsteelbuilding.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly cloudy skies, chance of rain showers, and a chance of rain or snow showers overnight, low around 30, and then just mostly cloudy skies tomorrow, around 40 for the high. Cool around 40 on Sunday, but more sunny skies on Sunday. It's been to 48. Right now we have 43 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. Before you put your sleeping bags away, give them a good wash in Mount Logan Laundry's 55 and 80-pound washers in Logan and Brigham. And now let's get this update from ABC News.
CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky okays COVID-19 vaccine boosters for all adults. There are calls for peaceful protests after a Wisconsin jury today acquitted Kyle Rittenhouse, claiming the 18-year-old acted in self-defense when he shot 3 men too fatally during protests last summer in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
We're going to shut some football games down. Yes. We're going to shut some malls down. Yes. We're going to shut some supermarkets down.
Bishop Tavis Grant with the Rainbow Push Coalition. 3 students were shot and wounded in the parking lot of a high school in Aurora, Colorado, just days ago. 6 students were shot and wounded in a park near another high school in the suburb of Denver.
There was a fight that started in this parking lot, and then it went into a shooting. These are our kids that are shooting one another.
Police Chief Vanessa Wilson, a pilot is dead, 2 others are injured in an accident involving 2 training aircraft at Laughlin Air Force Base in Texas. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Let's get the closing numbers now from Edward Jones.
This is Senior Branch Office Administrator Monique Benson bringing you the daily financial market report for November 19th on behalf of Financial Advisor Daryl Arnell and Edward Jones. U.S. equities finished lower, weighed by headlines about worsening COVID-19 trends and renewed lockdowns in Europe. While cyclical sectors, reopening stocks, and value were under pressure, tech outperformed, helping the Nasdaq stay in positive territory. Consistent with the continuous market undertone, bonds rallied as the 10-year Treasury yield fell to 1.54%, and the dollar appreciated against other currencies. WTI oil was down 6.3% to $76, about 10% off its October peak. U.S. equity markets closed lower today. The Dow Jones closed down 269 points at 35,602. The NASDAQ closed up 64 points at 16,057. S&P 500 closed down 7 points at 4,698. In stocks of local interest, Home Depot was up $2.84 at $408.69. Lowe's Companies was up $2.14 at $249.52. Nucor was up $1.15 at $112.85. R.R. Donnelley & Sons was down 8 cents to $9.25. Thermo Fisher was down $1.58 to $636.05, and Northrop Grumman was up $1.71 to $353.13. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Daryl Arnell, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you would like additional information, daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September 2022.
That's almost a whole year.
I know. My half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the Valley.
I better head there now.
Coming up on the Monday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the aftermath of the huge verdict, not guilty on all charges for Kyle Rittenhouse. What does it look like now in Kenosha across the country? Plus, Clay, what have you got?
What's going to happen in the Senate now that the Build Back Better bill has passed in the House? Will Manchin and company stand up to it? We'll start to get an early read. Plus, it's Thanksgiving week. Enjoy hanging out with all you. Can't wait to see you on Monday for the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
For the People movie show coming up at 5 o'clock, we've got a lot to talk about, but we will be talking about Ghostbusters Afterlife, the first official sequel. There was a remake several years ago, which is pretty good, actually. Funny, different. This is the first official sequel since the early 90s, 1990, I think it was, sequel. That definitely wasn't as good as the first. I didn't hate it as much as everyone else did, but it was kind of phoned in. Still had Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd in it. They can make anything funny. So if you haven't seen that for any reason, it's worth seeing. But that original Ghostbusters, such a classic. No one dared touch it. And so even the remake a few years ago with women in the roles, some very funny women in the roles, was a little controversial. There were some people that objected to anyone trying to reboot that movie, but it worked, and it ends up being its own movie, completely different and funny in a different way. And like I say, it's worth seeing. But I think there's always been this desire, this many decades on, to go back to that same team of people and put them together in a movie and let them be Ghostbusters again. But they didn't want to. That was one of the biggest holdups. Bill Murray wasn't interested, although I believe he's in this movie. He wasn't interested in starring in that role again. Dan Aykroyd the same. So they came up with a way to do it, and as I understand it, it's the grandkids. That's what this movie centers around. So Andy saw it, and I promise not to spoil what he's told me already about it, but I can say this. He went in a little hesitant, worried that it was going to be a big disappointment because it's hard to live up to that original Ghostbusters. And he said he loved every minute of it and was pleasantly surprised. So we'll find out why coming up at 5 o'clock before the People movie show with Andy Morgan. Bill mentioned it already, but some highlights from this USU New Mexico game in Myrtle Beach Invitational semifinal. What a game. Been a pretty exciting
especially
string
since,
of events for
USU.
Yesterday
the Aggies, barely held on against Penn. Went to double overtime and they escaped with a win. And then today, what I thought would be a better team than the one they played yesterday, they just blew them out of the water.
Yeah, it's been a good stretch for them, but yeah, what a game. There's some highlights linked on Facebook, and then a great write-up at CashValleyDaily.com. If you didn't catch that, it's worth a read. Also, CashValleyDaily.com, Logan City School District, as you heard during the news, joining 400 other school districts across the country as part of basically a class action litigation against a vape manufacturer, Juul, as it's known. Juul, I believe.
I think that's what it is.
See that in the story here. They're based out of, they're not based in Utah, and these 400 other districts are all over the country, but the lawsuit is basically claiming that the manufacturer downplayed health risks of vaping and used some pretty questionable marketing targeted at minors. And if you've ever seen the packaging on these, you can also say they maybe even package these things with minors in mind. I'm always torn on these things because I feel like sometimes we go about these things wrong from the start. Similar to our conversation earlier this week on the new book banning groups popping up, even here in Cache Valley, unfortunately. It's just it's a boneheaded way to go about it. And so I think sometimes when here in Utah, as soon as vaping became a big thing, the legislature just instantly ran to these you can't sell it here, you can't sell it there, it has to be hidden behind this, it has to be hidden behind that. And just like the reason I use the word boneheaded is that no one ever seems to learn the lesson on this type of stuff. Not saying that prohibitions have no place. I think it's great that your neighbor can't build a tactical nuke, which is a restriction on the Second Amendment technically. I think that's a great prohibition. I think it should be illegal for your neighbor to build certain items for self-defense, especially something that could take out the whole neighborhood. So those types of prohibitions have a place, but I think sometimes we go to them too quick. And what we end up doing is everyone forgets what it was like to be a teenager. And any time your parents are running around freaking out with all the other parents about a certain thing, the only result is your interest is piqued. I guarantee this cash chapter of Utah Parents United that is compiling a list of books they want banned from the school districts, I guarantee they're going to cause more kids to go out and try and check off that list of books than would have otherwise happened. It's the end result every single time this type of stuff happens. So I think the legislature actually fed the popularity of this by bringing it to everyone's attention so much. Not to say that there shouldn't have been, restrictions put in place. There were some changes made to how these can be sold here in Utah that I think were smart. But then, we started to see bills pop up where they weren't going to allow them to be sold outside of, any kinds of stores but these or any. And so then you see the interest start to grow and it becomes almost a rebellion thing for a lot of teenagers. So I think that's a contributor here, too. And so, again, I'm torn on these lawsuits because I worry. I think it's probably smart for a class action lawsuit against certain marketing practices that a company might have undertook that to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, entice minors into buying an addictive tobacco product, basically. But I also think that sometimes we mount an effort like this, and by we I mean whoever it is. But I think all of us watching it play out, an effort like this is mounted. There's a class action lawsuit. Maybe they win. There's millions of dollars in fines for the company, and everyone pats themselves on the back. But the problem is still there. You didn't. This company may be punished for their marketing practices, and maybe they deserve to be. I don't know. But the problem of what draws kids, teens especially, to this type of thing is not solved. And there will just be a next thing. And arguably, yeah, you're never going to get rid of this type of thing. Teens are always going to want to rebel to some extent. They're always going to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof to some extent. And there are always going to be things that are kind of trendy and at least quasi-rebellious that everyone gets on board with. That's not to say that I think parents should throw their hands in the air and say, well, nothing can be done. But I guess that's exactly my point, that this after-the-fact lawsuit against this company might help to prevent future companies from targeting minors for a tobacco product. Sure, and that's a very good thing. My issue is that everyone else watching this plays out then breathes a sigh of relief and says, whew, problem solved. Well, no, not really. There's just going to be the next thing. We need to figure out a better way to talk about these things, a better way to go about these things, and for our state lawmakers, a way to be less knee-jerk and panicky in a way that actually attracts attention to these things and encourages teens to see it as a way of rebelling. And yet we never seem to learn to change tactics on that. But we did speak, I remember a few years ago, we spoke with some of the family life researchers at Utah State University, and they talked about this a little bit. And they said, it's difficult for parents because to some extent, yes, cracking down on kids who are going to experiment, who are going to rebel a little bit, cracking down on them can actually just feed that and make them do more of it. But at the same time, turning a blind eye is almost like a seal of approval, which will make them do more of it. So family life researchers have said it's a fine line that parents basically have to walk. You have to be able to talk to your kids about these things. You have to be able to let it be known, to your teens that you disapprove, and here's why. And then there has to be punishment for rules broken. And all that has to happen without going too far in the opposite direction, where you actually give your teen an excuse to use that as their choice of rebellion, which teens are going to do no matter what. It would be difficult. And so that then brings me back to, okay, throw on top of that a company that's maybe marketing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge to teens, creates an impossible situation for parents. So I'm happy the lawsuit's happening. I'm happy Logan School District is signing on with these 400 other districts. But I really hope that we don't then say, in the end, if this company is forced to pay millions of dollars in fines for their marketing practices, great. But I hope we don't say, okay, problem solved, until the next time something like this comes along, which will be just a couple of years. Check it out. Full story on this and why the district decided to join. Logan Education Board Vice President Frank Snewart motioned to join the lawsuit during their recent meeting. And he did so with a contingency that any proceeds that result from the lawsuit be put back into the district's anti-smoking education and prevention program. So good stuff there. I've linked to the story at cashvalleydaily.com on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Advanced Heating and AC, the gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah, is teaming up with Carrier Heating and Cooling. Carrier provides you with the best furnace units available. And now is the best time to buy a new unit before the weather turns Cache Valley cold. Financing options are available. Turn to the experts at Advanced Heating and AC and Carrier. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning at 752-7272. Stop by their showroom west of DI. Online, advancedheating-ac.com.
8-year-old McKay is battling through a kidney disease, and we need your help to grant his wish. You can help by donating all throughout this week through Mountain Crest High School's website or Mountain Crest official Instagram at Mountain Crest HS. You can also help by joining a community race on November 20th and participate in either a 5K or Kids K. Details for how to donate and race can be found on the Mountain Crest High School homepage. Thank you from Mountain Crest High School and the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Come Celebrate a white Christmas with Anderson's Seed and Garden. They are potentially giving away $40,000 in merchandise to the first 50 people who spend $500 or more on holiday and Christmas decor between now and November 24th. If it snows at least 4 inches on Christmas Day and you made a qualifying purchase, your purchase is free. But you only have until November 24th to qualify. Only at Anderson's Seed and Garden. Logan, see store for official rules.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson. The Black Friday sales event is on now at Wilson Motor Company. We have bonus cash and 0% financing on select models to help clear out the remaining 2021 models. Check out our available inventory of over 60 new vehicles with 20 F-150s and 120 used vehicles. Drop in for a test drive at one of our 2 great locations. Hurry in, the Black Friday sales event ends soon.
Wilson Motor Company, we make car buying easy.
Adams Wealth Advisors' entire team says, thank you, Cache Valley, for voting them the best financial planner in the Best of Northern Utah competition. Honesty and integrity is the hallmark of Adams Wealth Advisors. Let them earn your trust today.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind, whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit adamswealthadvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today. Please see adamswealthadvisors.com for more information on these recent awards.
It's the last home football game of the season, and the Aggies are looking pretty good. Get ready for kickoff in new Aggie apparel from Locker 42. A Saturday night football game in November is a good time to layer up with a long-sleeve Aggie t-shirt. Stay warmer in an Aggie hoodie or jacket. An Aggie hat recommended too. Locker 42 always ready for game day, and it's a good time to do some Christmas shopping for your favorite Aggie fans. Shop either store 1430 North Main or at the flagship store 36 South Main. Locker 42.
Final story here in our Friday potpourri. I think I might actually reach out to them on this one, and we'll do something longer next week. But when you think of college competition, you think of, well, we've been talking about this USU-New Mexico game. There's also a pretty exciting, well, it's commercial right now, pretty exciting game going on the TV behind me. That's usually what you think of when you think college sports and competition. But something really cool just happened at USU that I honestly I'd never even heard of this competition. But the USU Range Club won second place in a regional team competition. So meaning throughout basically the Intermountain West, they took second place. And then I started reading what the competition consists of. And there's a story here at the USU news site of student Hadley Knudsen. One of the competitions that they placed well in, or actually took first place in, Knudsen had to produce the family, genus, and species of 100 native plants from pressed samples alone in under 100 minutes, with the entire world watching via live stream, and then had to spell each scientific name of those 100 species of native plants exactly right. That's just one of the competitions in this range management competition. Students from the Utah State University chapter of Society for Range Management really knocked it out of the park. The regional team competition happened in Richfield, and USU Range Club members placed in both plant identification contest and the undergraduate range management exam, meaning more of the undergraduate students as part of the team scored high on that exam than any other team. And it's pretty cool that this happened. Knudsen, the student, Hadley Knudsen, was quoted in the USU news story, said, "This was a lot of fun. We put in some good practice before we went, like any team would, but I didn't know quite what to expect from a competition setting." He said this was a great warm-up to the national competition, which is coming up early next year, and they expect to do just as well, if not better, there. So the exam, by the way, it's an intense written exam that includes evaluation of every possible topic associated with range management, from stock rates to ecological principles to atmospheric chemistry. This is a pretty cool thing. So yeah, check it out. I've linked to the USU News story on this. USU's Range Management Club won second place in a regional competition this week And I'm going to reach out to them, see if we can maybe get some of the students from the club here in the studio next week or the week after, just to talk more about what this competition is all about. I can't imagine. That's a very unique competition. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. Hour 2 of today's show coming up in just a few minutes. Andy Morgan of AndyAtTheMovies.com joining us for the For the People movie show. And we'll be talking about the most anticipated movie of the year, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the first official sequel in 3 decades. We'll be back right after this here on KVN.